Hey, Being at Work listeners, welcome back to another episode. This is your host, Andrea Butcher. This is such a good conversation today. I have known today's guests for a while and have loved getting to learn more about her journey. And you'll hear as she reflects on pivotal moments throughout her career, she emphasizes the relationship strategy. I love thinking about it as a strategy. Building authentic relationships, because that's where the work is. And as you'll hear, she asks herself, okay, what's this relationship look like that I'm trying to build? And is my action breaking that down or building that up? Vanessa Fields is the Director of Human Resources at XPO. But what you really need to know about Vanessa is how she felt stifled and silenced early in her career, but had strong leaders that helped her find resilience. So listen in as we talk about the relationship strategy, what not to do, the importance of the feedback loop, as she will mention multiple times, and the difference between pleasing people and meeting them where they are. Check it out.
Yeah, it's been quite the journey. I thought my entire life I wanted to be a teacher, and then through meeting people and going to school at Ball State, I realized that my calling was really in human resources, and there was enough of the teaching and development opportunities in that, as well as the customer service, that I was able to really follow that path and find my home in HR across several industries. So straight out of college, I worked for Target stores in leadership, not even directly in HR, and really got to hone my operational skills and my leadership skills, and had such a great and some not so great experiences there. Met some of the most important people in my network that through Target, and have since worked in automotive. That's kind of where I got my feet wet in HR, automotive manufacturing. That's where I got experience supporting union contracts and seeing that side of a business. And then since then, I've worked in consumer goods in the beverage industry. I worked for Amazon for a little bit, and now I'm at XPO and really loving. I have the opportunity to support our fleet maintenance and our trailer manufacturing teams, which is such a niche part of the business. And while I may never be one that's trusted to turn a wrench and make sure that equipment is safe on the road, really enjoying learning from those that are experts in such a hands-on, high-skilled labor pool. So it's been a really fun journey all throughout, and I still have such great relationships with people in my network, in my past, that I hope I never lose, because that's what it's all about.
Yeah, when I was asking you about a pivotal moment across that incredible experience, there wasn't just one thing. There were a series of moments, and the relationship thread was so key.
Yeah. And at one point early in my career, I was naive. I thought that, I even would tell people, I'm not going to rely on relationships. I'm going to go prove myself. I don't need someone to say my name and to make a referral. And now looking back, I'm like, girl, I'm glad you did, because it makes such a difference when you have allies and advocates and people in rooms that you're not in to make recommendations. That's how I learned about this opportunity at XPO, was somebody said my name that I wasn't in. And I'm so glad that they did. And I continue to give back, be it people on my direct team or those that I've worked with, peers, previous mentors. The network that we have is so vast, and I love growing it. And I love being able to say, oh, I met so-and-so, and let me make that connection for you, whether it's to grow their business or to grow their experience or to get them a job, to get them out of a really bad situation or to put them in a better situation. That's like my number one goal. And it gets me so excited to be able to do that for others too.
Well, and for you, it really is a relationship strategy. You're intentional about those relationships. How do you know which relationships are worth nurturing?
It's a great question. Yeah. I think that companies and organizations and teams that are aware and intentional about making sure that relationships are at the forefront of their strategy are the most successful. And I've experienced those that kind of put people and relationships at the wayside. And I left, right? I saw where that did not support my vision in my future. And how I identify which ones matter is they all matter. It's just a matter of whether who gets the most time and support, right? Like everyone matters. Everyone that I interact with, whether I choose to agree with them or not, or we choose to disagree, they're still humans. They still come to work or they still live every day for a reason, and they've all got their own baggage to carry, right? But which ones do I pour into more are those that are worth it in the sense that they so I've met a lot of people around that. For example, I had a business partner that was anti-HR, and I made it my mission to change his mind, to help him understand that partnership and the value and the growth that we could have together. And biggest success story, still a really, really good friend of mine to this day. But I could have given up and could have just said, you know what, I'm just going to go about my business and you do you and I do me and we'll figure it out. But I wanted to understand the why. Why did he come to work every day? What was he going after? What did he look at? What was important to him? Because clearly he was in that role for a reason and had been for a very long time. And so what could I learn from him? How could I meet him where he was? What experiences had he had that made him anti-HR, that I could either dispel or disprove or help him understand that we're not all so bad. And I was very successful in doing that. And along the way, we built a relationship on those shared experiences of how not everything has been sunshine and rainbows, but not everyone shares in such a toxic world either. I've been told so many times, Andrea, you are quite different. I'm like, that's good. I want to be remembered as someone who was kind of breaking the mold and more humanizing. I mean, it's in the title, but it's not always all that humane being in HR, it seems. But I really enjoy setting that standard that it doesn't have to be all negative. I'm not the principal. I'm not the police of, the policy police. I am here to make it better for you than when you came in today. And that you might be a frontline employee, you might be a leader, or you might be an executive. And how can we be better tomorrow than we were today? Whatever that looks like in that moment.
Yeah. And no doubt in this situation, he could feel that. I mean, that's a mindset that you're walking around with. I want things to be better. No doubt he could feel that.
Yeah. And I proved it day in and day out. He even said at one point, like, I thought eventually you'd let down the guard. No, that there's no guard. There's no wall. There's no mask. This is me. That I am congruent can be. What you see is what you get. I might tease you a little bit, just because I know it's a little uncomfortable, but I genuinely want to know, shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah. Your care is genuine and you can't fake that.
Some people try, and then by the end, they're so exhausted trying to be genuine that then it falters. And so it was through a lot of time and questions and authenticity that I was able to be successful in that example. But, I could have decided that it wasn't worth my time. Some of that's just a gut feeling, Andrea, that I'm able to say there's something here that's worth continuing. But other times it's simply because I can see that the person in front of me maybe hasn't been given the time of day. He hasn't been listened to. And what does it hurt to give someone an extra 4.5 minutes to understand where they're coming from, what they might be dealing with outside of work or at work if it's a personal situation that really does play into their day or their attitude or their situation. And that's not for me to judge.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that you're trusting your gut on, you know what, this is someone I should lean into a little bit. There's something there always. Well, and I know early in your career you relied on relationships with leaders to really help you learn more about you. Also, you told me about feeling stifled and silenced, and you had leaders that really encouraged that. So through those relationships, so I suspect that was also a part of you valuing the relationship. You learned about you in the process.
It absolutely was. And when I first met the couple of leaders that I was alluding to, I was like, dang, you're a unicorn. I didn't realize that like I could have a leader like this that listened, that cared, that gave me space to be vulnerable, that helped me realize whatever you want to call it, work-life balance, work-life integration, adjusting, pivoting, all of those things, because these leaders came into my life early in my marriage, early in motherhood, and a lot of change in my life where, trying to be really successful in a career and then starting a family. And I had a son who was born with a heart defect and having to navigate all of that. And so they just accepted me and met me where I was and helped me learn how to be the type of leader that I always needed, and then continued to challenge me with grace, give me opportunities that maybe because of, being stifled and blocked in my past, I maybe wasn't comfortable taking myself, but they kind of nudged me along and gave me the recognition that I deserved, and really shared with me that this can happen as a leader. This really can happen as a peer. And so I just took it and ran with it and really molded my leadership style a lot off of what not to do, but also with knowing that there were people in the world that were doing what I always looked for. And so that gave me the courage to be that person for others.
Yeah, there was a value within you that emerged based on what they were modeling. And you told me that these were relationships that helped you to be more resilient. How that so you just described such good leadership. How did that impact your resilience?
It's a great question. I resilience is one of many things they helped me
Yeah.
rely on and build and react to. And um, I was so broken down from previous experiences, and some smaller than others, some really, really big, that I kind of had to go back and rebuild things that I couldn't go finish those conversations or revoke those experiences, but I had to just, it's almost like finding faith and then finding accepting you can't go back and change everything, but you can rewrite going forward, is how I found that resilience after meeting them and learning from their leadership style.
So it sounds empowering. Like they empowered you to create something new, to shape something new. I mean, it sounds like leadership. They encouraged you to lead.
Yeah, and in so many ways, they empowered me to be me, and that was okay. Because part of the blocking and the negative experiences that I went through early in my career was I didn't have a voice. Your voice was too bitchy. You were too dominant. You were, nah, that's not really your space. Those types of things, like very demoralizing. And then when I met them and realized that I was empowered to be vulnerable and ask questions and fail and make a mistake and learn. And again, you said it's great leadership, but we both know it's not everywhere. And so when
Yeah, absolutely.
I clung to that, and while we don't all work at the same organization anymore, they're really strong leaders and mentors in my life and friends. And we've, continued to encourage each other and empower each other to work through life's moments and work's moments, and even to this day. But I've been able to carry that with me from organization to organization and continue on that impact with others.
That's so great. You make a great point about like that good leadership not being the norm. And I think in a lot of organizations, they almost like rationalize away shitty leadership. I was just before this, I was on a coaching call. The CEO is demonstrating some just really, I would say, like greedy, selfish behaviors, like not good leadership. And as I've been coaching the CEO's direct report team, the executive team, I'm seeing the impact on them, but they rationalize it. They're like, well, but he's really busy and he's got a lot going on and he's focused externally, and like, wow, but that's not okay. Like, so how can you advocate for yourself? Maybe this gets to, Vanessa, what you're talking about, being silenced and feeling stifled. And how do you, in those kind of environments, how do you advocate for yourself? How do you set boundaries? How do you, yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's certainly a bigger part of the journey because it really is a case by case scenario. Who's the person? What's their buy-in? What's their right? You've got to kind of play that a little bit too. I'm not as afraid to raise an eyebrow, share with my leader now, or even if I ever needed to escalate, I'm more confident in my right and ability to do so than I would have ever been before. Early in my career, I was like, don't even question the feedback. Just accept it, impact it, and move on and like survive the day in a lot of ways. But just like all of the positive, recognitions and little nuggets that you gather throughout your life and your career that you kind of build your fortress out of, some of those were kind of shards of glass that cut you and stung and scarred you, but they still made you who you are today. And so I don't discredit any of those experiences as much as I have built them into my leadership philosophy to hope to never give to anyone else. They are what they are. I look back on them now and I'm like, I'm glad I was able to set the boundary to get away since I wasn't influence a difference in all of those circumstances. But my way of kind of righting their wrongs is just making sure that I don't pass that on. It's almost like breaking generational traumas.
Absolutely. And that's the key, isn't it? Is recognizing it and not keeping it going. Like being willing to say, like, that's not helpful. Let's try that a different way.
And I'm not a perfect boss. I don't know it all. I'm the first to tell anyone that. But I am someone that if I say I want the feedback, what could I do differently? What could I do better? I mean it. And then I'll ask you or whomever is providing the feedback, like, all right, what does that look like to you? And right, it's not just a casual question and answer. It's like a work session, right? Like, all right, so what are we going to do with this, and how can I do better, and what does success look like out of that feedback, and how can I check in with you to make sure that I'm meeting that, and I think that's where some people may get to the edge and kind of tiptoe on the I want to do better. I would love to hear, what do you need from me? How can I be a better leader or a better mentor? And then it ends. I try to lead it by example in what that feedback loop looks like. And that was something that Target was really great at. And so I think that it really set the foundation was two-way feedback was an utmost priority at the time that I worked there. And so I think that the tools that they put in my tool belt early on in my career have really stayed with me. And that was certainly one of the bigger ones.
So foundational.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I loved how you alluded to this when you were describing your journey. You talked about some of the most important relationships to you today were formed in that first role. Isn't that funny how that happens when you look back? It's like, wow. I think like right place at the right time. And there's just a bond that's created in those early roles.
Yeah. And I've been blessed with some incredible bonds even since then. And then we all still talk today, and we're all in organizations, and we always joke about getting the band back together and how great it would be to create our own organization and just go out and, kill it in the world. But instead we are kind of on our own path, but we know that we're just a phone call away. And that just means the world to have that outside perspective for each of us, but know that
It's so great.
Always in their corner no matter what.
I love that. So for our listeners, so I've had a front row seat to some of those relationships. I think about some of the shared friends we have, like Hannah and Jacqueline, and it's so fun to see you all because you're all so successful independently. But I see when you all get together, you can just see that love and connectedness and support that you have. That no doubt props you up wherever you are.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. Coming together in shared experience and shared need and shared curiosity, and then going out and letting the tentacles kind of grow and the
Right.
roots grow elsewhere. But again, coming back to your roots and knowing you have a place here. You are safe here. No question's a dumb question. No experience is too tough for us to tackle as a tribe. And it just means a lot.
It's so good. Well, and all of this, I mean, I set it up in the intro that all of this is about like you have very much a strategic orientation around relationships, right? You're nurturing them, you're building on the foundation. And you also had shared with me that there's a question that you ask yourself around relationships. Share that with us because I think there's so much intentionality in that question.
What is that relationship that I'm really trying to build here or foster here if it's already established? And is what I'm doing right now or what I'm working toward breaking that down or building that up? What once a relationship is formed, it is not guaranteed. It takes a lot of trust and continued consistency, right? To make sure that you aren't taking for granted what is there. And be it a new relationship or an existing relationship, it can very easily go the wrong way. And particularly when trying to be strategic and efficient and successful in a work environment, being that I have an HR hat on or I've been in HR for nearly 20 years or not, I want people to know that who is on the other side of that line cares about what they need, be it a concern that is something easy like, hey, I need this referral bonus process, or something that's more difficult like an investigation that I may need to take lead on, or anything between, collaborating on a project, or they're just having a shitty day and they need to know that they're not alone. I love being a person for them from a very genuine perspective and letting them know, similar to my outside network, we're in this together. We might not have to face it, together, physically together. I've been doing a lot of remote work even since before the pandemic. And so that was a different way of having to build relationships with people I would never have the opportunity to meet in person, but I wanted to build a relationship as if we'd known each other for years. And I also know that in HR, the work that we do can be really, really complex and really, really sensitive. So when I think of, is my action breaking that down or building it up, I take the circumstance at the forefront as well and know that I'm going in. Sometimes it comes with disclaimers, right? We talk about some really sensitive information, or we talk about some really concerning topics that can put people on edge, and building those relationships beforehand or as best as you can in the moment, it from an authentic place really helps you be successful in the task at hand, but then also going forward. I've executed termination conversations even early in my career, and the person hugged me because they were like, you were so nice about it, right? Like, I was like,
Yeah.
really?
Compassion. You showed up with a lot of
Yeah,
compassion.
yeah,
Yeah. And they could feel that.
yeah. The words don't always come to me well, but the feelings and the memories are certainly there.
Well, and I love the question, is what I'm doing breaking down the relationship or building it up? Because it's such a good self-reflection question. And it also, I think it challenges leaders to pause. As you were saying that, Vanessa, I was reflecting on a recent situation. I have always erred on the side of transparency as a leader, and I often share too much. And it's in the spirit of like, oh, we're just going to get it out there, but it's not always helpful to people. It's not always what they need where they are. So in the spirit of like meeting people where they are, I mean, that question helps me really check. Like, but is it helpful to them? Is it breaking down something? Well, and in talking a little bit about meeting people where they are, those are popular words. I hear that all the time. And I think we all get like it's seeking to understand. It's not one size fits all from a relationship perspective. But you also talk about the difference between meeting people where they are and people pleasing. And it's important to make a distinction. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. This has been a lesson that I continue to learn. Um, it can take many forms, but the difference between people pleasing and meeting them where they are is, especially if you have a relationship built, right? It's also dependent on the trust that you have. How much money do you have in that trust bank? Because if you don't have much, then you got to be careful. But you could tell them what they want to hear, which is not productive, or you can, in a very respectful, reasonable way, challenge their notions, challenge their misconceptions, question what they're saying, and or help them say, well, what exactly do you mean by that comment or question or action? And again, in a way where you are being respectful, but not just moving on in a way that just pleases them and discredits your piece of the game. And again, words are not my strong suit all the time, but I have several examples where I just became a yes person, particularly early in my career, because it was much more comfortable and far less scary than asking the question to the big scary leader on the other side of the conversation or table. And it was through those relationships that I built kind of mid-career with those just incredible humans that I was blessed to have as leaders. I saw examples of how to shut down conversations without letting them go 45 minutes because I was scared to shut down a conversation, or to navigate difficult conversations in a way that was still productive, still got us to the end goal, but that didn't trivialize the topic or, uh, you know, impact, the narrative that was needed. Um, and now I intentionally give those around me and those on my team space to do the same. So it's similar to that feedback loop I was talking about. I don't want you to tell me yes just because you think I want to hear yes. I want you to put goals. I want you to give your feedback, what else should I consider? Who else should I talk to? Why isn't this going to work? And that has helped open my eyes so much that that perpetuation of respect is so much more important to me than just trying to say, yes, whatever you say.
Yeah. And it's an indication of openness and trust when someone does say, hey, I'm struggling with this. Hey, this wasn't cool. Recently I had a team member come to me and give me some constructive feedback, and I was so grateful because I'm like, she feels comfortable coming to me and telling me this.
It's life changing, right? Like if they aren't, I'm so happy for you for
They're telling somebody else.
yes. And I would rather they tell me or tell you and be comfortable. Like that's what it's all about.
You got it.
That's what it's all
Yeah.
about. Is if I'm not opening those lines of communication and setting that foundation for vulnerability and honesty, true honesty, then what am I doing?
Yeah, because it's you talked earlier about authentic relationships, and with that comes a level of openness.
Yeah. And it also comes, like, it makes me feel more comfortable, right? Like I don't have to
Mm-hmm.
like I've done before, right? Like looking back, I'm like, goodness, like that was just so much to try to fit in someone else's mold that didn't, right? It was like trying to fat guy in a little coat, like that coat's not for you. And now I'm just, I can breathe easier. It's creativity flows. And I'm just so glad that I'm able to set that space for others as well. I had a conversation with a member of my team yesterday, and she was like, it's just so nice to have the opportunity to just have a conversation. It's not formal. It's not boxy. It's not stuffy. It doesn't need to be. And we can be so productive and so efficient and get a lot of shit done. And it's a lot of fun while we do it.
Absolutely. Yes, because there's trust there. There's connection there. There's transparency there. Yeah. It's so great. I love it. I mean, across all of these stories, it is about being intentional about your relationship strategy and thinking about your relationship strategy. I mean, even that's a great question for our listeners. Like, what's your relationship strategy? How are you approaching it? What questions are you asking going in? How are you nurturing it? How are you meeting them where they are? How are you incorporating feedback? I mean, you've given us so much to think about to enhance our own relationship strategies. So thank you, Vanessa. I appreciate you showing up with so much insight today. Thank you for sharing your journey. Thank you for talking through the challenges and the struggles and the leadership lessons that you've had. We are better for it.
Thank you, Andrea.
So if our listeners want to connect with you, Vanessa, as no doubt they will, what's the best place to do that?
Yeah, I would love to have some new connections. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook. I'm one of the originals. Wherever you find me, please do connect. I'd look forward to it.
Awesome. Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you for joining us for this episode. Please subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast to never miss a Being at Work story.